What is up, everybody? Hey, Ryan here, along with Olivia. What's up, Olivia? Oh, and Olivia's in the house today, as she is every day. She's our producer. Hey, so I think I shared a couple of podcast episodes ago that my dad died, and we are in the process of planning his funeral. So we're going to all fly out to Colorado. My mom, my sister, my brother, and my brother lives out there, actually, and we're going to bury him in the ground in Denver, in the Denver area. And before my dad died, he knew he knew his time was coming up and his life was coming to an end. And he told my mom, "Don't do a funeral for me. Just put me in the ground. Just be done with me." And if you knew my dad, that's how he was. He didn't care for all the pomp and circumstance. He didn't need a big deal made of him. He never liked the attention on himself. He was just an incredible servant and just a wonderful man who didn't need all the attention. But of course, we're like, dude, we're not going to not do a funeral. And my mom was like, "That's silly, Fred. We're not going to not do one." And I'm like, "No, I would argue we need funerals." And I learned this during COVID. During COVID, there was a number of folks who had a loved one die, and they wouldn't let people do funerals for a long time for all the reasons that people were told, because they didn't want to have a large gathering, and there was all kinds of logistical hurdles. And so, but a number of folks, their grief sort of just kept on going, and it lingered in a way that I've never seen before. Because, as I've argued before, we are people of ritual, and we need rituals and ceremonies and these kind of things. And funerals are one of those things. And as Olivia and I were just chatting just a moment ago, but she said, "Yeah, the funeral is not for the one who died." Like, yeah, 100%. So we told my dad, the funeral's not for you, so don't worry about it. It's for us. It's for the living. It's a way for us to grieve and say goodbye and give thanks to God for your life and memory, and to have some closure, some sense of closure in ourselves. And again, rituals are these things, ceremonies. These are the things that we do with our physical bodies, and there's actions, and there's prayers, and there's songs, and there's dancing, or whatever your things are, that sort of do something to us, and they allow us space to grieve and to say goodbye, especially in the case of funerals. And this is incredible. So, funerals have been around for a long time. There's evidence of pollen that was discovered in these burial caves in northern Iraq that reveals that, like, these ancient Neanderthal communities would put flowers on the graves of their dead loved ones. Which is, many of these anthropologists think that this is like a forebear of today's funeral rites. So the ancient Neanderthals were doing funeral rites. This is way before institutional churches or religion, these kind of things. It was like as though way back when they had this sense that we need to do something to kind of honor this one who's died, who had lived with us for a long time, to say goodbye, to put some bee pollen on these caves, or to put some flowers on these sites, or to dance in a circle, or jump over a stick, or something to say goodbye and to grieve and to weep and mourn. And so this is why I think we all should have funerals. And listen, here's the other thing that I've noticed in modern culture. I don't know how new this is, but as a pastor, I see it all the time. People say to me, "Well, Ryan, we don't want to have a funeral. We're going to call it a celebration of life." Or, "Well, it isn't a funeral, it's a memorial." And I'm like, yeah, whatever. I just let the folks who are grieving kind of tell me what they want to say or what language they want to use, and that's fine. But I often want to ask them, like, what's the difference? And what I find in some cases when I do ask, or when they sort of talk more about it, they say things like, "Well, we don't want a funeral because funerals are sad. We want to have a celebration because those are joyful and more uplifting." And look, I get it. I understand that, folks want to remember the good and the positive things, and that's also part of a funeral. The word funeral just means, it's just sort of this ancient ritual of remembering the dead. That's kind of where it comes from. And so they can look like all things. But what I get nervous about is this idea that funerals, or even memorials or celebrations of life, that they can't be sad. In our modern world, we don't love to be sad. We don't like grief, but we often want to skip right over it, or shoot right through it, or avoid it altogether. And that's a problem, because grief and sadness and sorrow is what it means to be a human and to be alive. If you don't have those emotions, you're probably not really fully alive or fully engaged in life, because life has all kinds of things that make us sad or sorrowful. And suffering and pain, these are all, unfortunately, or maybe not even, but like, these are all part of life. And so a funeral, it's okay if it's sad. In fact, I would argue it should be sad. Now, it doesn't have to just be sad, but listen, you had a loved one who just died. Like my dad, we grew up with him. My mom was married to him for 20 plus years and had known him for another, I think, 20 before that. And like, of course she's going to be sad. Like, I would never want to tell someone like that, oh, you shouldn't be sad. We're going to just celebrate. No, it's okay to be sad. And in the sadness, in the grief, in the sorrow, that is also celebrating his life and telling the stories. And listen, there will also be hilarious stories. My brother Chris he's super funny, just naturally. He's a hilarious guy. And we've already been telling funny stories. When I was there the week when he was dying, we told funny stories. We went like in and out from like telling funny stories and laughing to crying and weeping over his body as we prayed and commended him, and then to watching football with him. And it was like this weird in and out of life and death. And we went from crying to laughing and back and forth. And it's like, that's what it is. It's what it's like. So anyway, I guess I want to say funerals are not for the dead. They're for the living. And it's a way for us to grieve. We need them. We need them. It's good to get together with people and to share the grief in this physical space where you all gather together and you sing songs and you pray and you tell stories about that person and you celebrate them for sure, but you also weep and cry and grieve. And you have a pastor or a preacher or somebody just get up and read a scripture and then talk about that in life and death. And then you pray and you close and you go and bury them in the ground. And that's kind of a closure ceremony. It's an incredibly profound and mystical thing that we do that impacts us profoundly. So don't skip that. It's okay to do that and to have a little bit of pomp and circumstance. That's actually a good thing. And also know that when you do have them, it's okay if there's some sadness there. You should be sad. You should feel free and feel open to be sad and have some sorrow and laugh and tell funny stories as well. They all kind of belong because they're all a part of that person's life. So, all right, so have a funeral and celebrate and cry and laugh and weep and go and have lunch and do it together. All right, love you guys. Peace. Hey, if you enjoy this show, I'd love to have you share it with some friends. And don't forget, you are always welcome to join us in person at Central in Elk River at 8:30, which is our liturgical gathering, or at 10 o'clock, our modern gathering. Or you can check us out online at clcelkriver.org. Peace.